I was intentionally going out. I was going to meetups. I was going to events. I was listening to podcasts. I was finding anyone that was doing anything locally that was like doing flips and like seeing how I can meet with them. I won't even list the amount of names of people that I met with, a couple dozen people, like over the first couple of years, just trying to get in the door and like figure out how I could like bring value and then like, you know, have a value exchange. And whenever people are like, oh, well, you got lucky because connections, I'm like, I made the connections. I made them. I did not get introduced to one of those people. I made those connections by brute force.
What's up, you guys? Welcome to the Deals Aloha podcast, where we talk about real estate deals and business, hope to leave a long-lasting impact on our audience, and of course, spread aloha. You can find us on all social media platforms at Kamohai and Tristyn. Let's go.
Let's go. Today we have Cody Barton. I'm actually friends with his wife, and therefore I'm friends with him. But we originally met Cody through Pace Morby. We joined Pace's mentorship and just really connected there. And every time we come out to Arizona, we tend to go out to dinner and have fun. But he is from Arizona, and he is the CEO of Scale with Pros. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, absolutely. Excited to have the conversation. Always a good time chatting with you guys.
Yeah. I mean, we haven't seen each other. The last time we saw Cody, guys, was over dinner. And Kamohai and I still say that was one of my favorite trips we've gone on in a long time, because it was just Kamohai and I, and it was just for fun. Like, it wasn't for business. We went to Beyonce concert.
We did go to Beyonce concert. It was kind of crazy, and that's a story for another time. But we got to go out to dinner with Cody and Hael. It was unreal.
Yes.
Good catching up. And like, we're always so busy. So this is why I love podcasts so much, because we get to catch up and talk about what each other are doing now. But it's been long overdue. Yeah.
And the conversations are still constructive to where they can make impact on other people. So that's why we love podcasts, and that's why we do them. So the first question, Cody, is how did you get into real estate?
Yeah, for sure. So in 11 days, I turned 31, and I started my entrepreneurial journey when I was 17. I read, all the Robert Kiyosaki books, the Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Retire Young, Retire Rich, all of those. And I was like, I'm going to do business or real estate. And like, that was the thing. 'Cause I was like, that's how you like make money. And when I was, 17 to 21, I ended up actually getting into network marketing, grew a big team, couple thousand people. Company goes under when I'm 21, and I'm like, crap, now what do I do with my life? And, I picked back up the book of, I think it was like Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I'm like, okay, well, he says this stuff about real estate. So I'm going to do real estate, because that's where people make a bunch of money. And so I didn't know how to invest in real estate, so I do what every knucklehead does and get the real estate license, thinking that's what you're supposed to do if you want to invest in real estate, which I would not recommend doing that if I knew what I knew now.
Right.
But I got my real estate license and started working with clients with the goal of investing. And after about a year and a half, 2 years, I accidentally wholesaled some deals. Didn't really know what wholesaling was. It was more like I got a client and the house was like jacked up, and I had like a mentor of mine named Frank that would do fix and flips. And I'm like, Frank, I got this house and it's a disaster and I can't list it. And he's like, I'll buy it for this. And that's like, talk to the client. Hey, they'll do this price. And then like, Frank's like, I'll do that price. And so, that was kind of like
wholesaling. I love it.
So, that's kind of like the introduction and this transition to the investing side where, I was just hating being an agent, because I like freedom and location freedom, and I want to have all of the freedoms, the time, the financial, and location freedom. Yeah. And so I was like, I'm not going to do agent stuff anymore. So I just like kind of drew a line in the sand, and I'm like, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm just going to figure out this whatever the heck this wholesaling stuff is, and fix and flips. And so that's transition into doing that. And this was I was 24, 23. No, I was like 23. when I fully was like, I'm doing the investing side of real estate. And so that's kind of how the start began. Was, all right, I'm going to start wholesaling. And, I had no idea anything about construction, anything about fix and flips. I didn't have money to do fix and flips, so I would just go get deals, and I brought him to, this original mentor named Frank, and I would bring him a good deal. He would fund it. He would do the renovation, and then he would give me like 40% of the deal. And I'm
Wow.
right, hey, like that's a good deal for me. And so that's kind of how like the initial start began.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay, I picked up on a couple of things you said. First one was you turned 31 in 11 days. I didn't know you were a May baby.
Yes, I'm a Taurus by
I'm
like
a
barely a
Taurus.
day.
Yeah.
Okay, wait, so don't make me do the math, but when's your birthday?
May 20th.
I'm the 17th.
Okay.
My brother's birthday
I
is
was
May
like,
20th.
Kahana's
Really?
May 20th.
Yeah. My younger brother is May 20th.
Go
That's classic.
Tauruses. We're special.
So out of all that stuff that you just said, she just heard that you were a
I
May.
said I did.
She's like, you're a Taurus.
She's like, wait, May birthday, Taurus.
I said I picked up on a couple of things.
Yeah.
Okay. So then the other thing was that you don't recommend that people get their license if they're interested in investing in real estate. Why?
I wouldn't say it's like the worst thing to do, but it's just like you don't have to. I thought I had to because I didn't know anyone. I was a freaking stupid 21-year-old. I was just like, I don't know. I don't know rich people, like besides the people that I met in my network marketing experience and, different industries. So I'm like, I don't know anyone that's like a big investor in real estate. And so, just looking online, like this is a time too when like there wasn't 100,000 gurus online teaching. So like people also need to remember that, because people are like, how did you not just know from YouTube? It's like there was like one guy on YouTube and it was Cody Sperber. And like that was like the only guy. Like there wasn't like the everything there is today as far as resources. And like Bigger Pockets was like just like you'd read forums.
Right.
And so like that's what I had. And so I was like, all right, get a license, because then I can like be involved in transactions and learn. And so I would say, the reason I say I wouldn't recommend it is if you want to just wholesale real estate and do fix and flips, like and buy rentals, you just need to know how to market and find distressed sellers, get them under contract for the price that's going to be profitable. So you need to learn how to run numbers more than you need to have a license.
Yep.
And then you can hire a transaction coordinator that's competent to do the paperwork. So you don't need to know how to do the paperwork. And then the actual, fix and flip, you need to just know construction if you're going to do fix and flip. So it's like, and knowing numbers on that stuff. And so like none of that requires a license. And then when you go to list it on the back end, I guess you could save the money and list it yourself if you have your license, but you could also just pay an agent a flat fee to list your stuff for a couple $1,000. So it's like that. I didn't know that though. So it's just, I didn't know any of that information. So that's why I got it initially.
Yeah. We get told all the time, like, one of you should get your license. One of you should get your license. You guys are giving away and leaving so much money on the table when you sell your properties. And I'm like, yeah, but I'm not passionate about that. Number one, like, I don't want to be holding open houses.
I'm not sitting in these open houses talking to all of these hundreds of potential buyers. Like that is not a good use of my time.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Agreed.
But I do feel like a lot of people get held up like that. They think that they have to do something.
Yeah.
And the fact of the matter is you do not have to have your real estate license in order to be in real estate, especially this investing side.
Exactly.
You heard it here.
You heard it 3 times.
Yeah.
And then the other thing I heard was, you partnered with somebody, an experienced investor, and that really helped you get into the industry of real estate investing. So for people, do you think that's a good way for people to get into investing, is to partner with an experienced investor? And if yes, or if no, why, and what are some things to look out for?
Yeah, absolutely. So I would say yes and no. It always depends on the person, right? It's like you want to have, you want to do your diligence on like whoever you're potentially doing a deal with, making sure that they know what the heck they're doing and like have done deals. Like, the guy, Frank, that I ended up doing that first deal with, I asked him to, like, I was like, hey, like, I'm going to bring you deals. Like, I'd love to, like, just learn from you. And like, he showed me a couple projects he was doing. So like, I saw with my own eyes projects he was actively doing, why he was doing things a certain way, how he got the deal. And, so I built a little bit of a relationship with him. And I think a lot of times, where people get into trouble is like, they just go ahead and just like partner with someone in a deal, and they don't know anything. There's no like accountability of who's responsible for what, who's funding what, like all, so it's like, you want to have those conversations. And so I would say, yes, it's a good idea, but you need to do your diligence. You need to be clear on who's accountable for what. You need to know, what's going on and the whole process, like clear communication. And like, for example, right now, I'm not really doing much in the real estate space now. I just, have rentals and Airbnbs, but, I have a buddy of mine that, has his mobile home dealer's license, and, he has a few deals going right now where he's like buying lots, tearing down old mobiles, putting new ones on, and, he's out of money, and he's like, hey, like, I'll give you 50% of this deal that I have here if you'll just fund all of it. And I'm like, freaking yeah, absolutely. Like, I'm in, sign me up, So it's like, but it's like, and some people, they want to just like count all of the money and just like, not JV. But for him, like, he would have just passed on the deal because he didn't have a capital source, where it's like, I could at least make 50% and not have to worry about any of the money for in his eyes. And I'm like, I don't have time to go screw around with that deal. But he can just go and do everything, but I'll fund everything.
Exactly.
And so it's like, it's just finding the, in like a fix and flip, there's really only like 3 pieces of value. There's the person with the deal, the person with the money, and the person with the construction. That's it. There's not really anything else to offer. So it's like, who's doing what in that value exchange?
Exactly. I would rather have a piece of something than a piece of nothing.
I think a lot of people get caught up on that in the beginning too, thinking that they don't have a big enough piece of the pie, right? And I think at the beginning, it's important to note that anything is better than nothing, especially on a deal like that. And the value, you can't always see the value that the other person is bringing, and experience is so valuable, right?
It's invaluable.
That's a big thing on it, is like joint venturing on some deals. Not saying that people need to go full out partner, but it's like just joint venturing on a deal or two, like a few deals, right? The education you get during that process is worth way more than the actual money is, even if they're taking the lion's share of the deal, because they're going to, you can watch the decisions they make through the process and understand how they manage the project, how they manage, their contractors. Like, you get to learn so much, and like the decision making of like why we need to buy it at a certain price because of XYZ reason, like how hard money works for people that don't know that. And, they're bringing in private capital, like how does that work? It's like, there's so much education that happens, and at the where people have the opportunity to learn and earn at the same time, even though they don't get the majority of the deal, it's like way better.
That's a huge win. And we always talk about that. Like, hindsight's always 20/20, and nothing builds character like experience. But we got a master's degree in flipping on our first deal.
First couple ones.
And so we always say, like, we wish we knew all of that and that we could even JV with somebody. Like, we were that naive that we didn't even know we could bring this to an experienced investor and they would even want to, because there's 3 parts to a deal and etc. Like, we would have learned and probably made money on our first deal if we brought it to an experienced investor, because we didn't know that the foundation was going to cost $40,000. You know what I mean? Just all this stuff. So that's nuggets of gold right there. Okay, so you were working with Frank, and then what happened next?
Yeah, so was doing some deals with him, and I'm like, this is cool, because like he just handles construction and brings the money, and like we're making money on some flips. And so was doing that, and I was doing then just like my own wholesaling, the old methods that don't work as well as they used to, the old days of doing text marketing, and when you could just rip a list and send it for 0.0001 cents a message,
good old days, man.
And you didn't have to register your HD2P or whatever the heck the thing is,
10 DLC, no 10 DLC back then.
It's like you could just freaking rip a list and send out 100 text messages a week, and it was good old days. But so So I was doing text marketing, and then I had some cold callers, and I was wholesaling like 2-3 deals a month, nothing crazy. And then like one would be a flip, every other month with that Frank guy. And, but I was always trying to do more. And then what ended up happening was I connected with, as you guys already mentioned, Pace. I wasn't, a great closer, and he was good at it, and but I was getting leads and he wasn't good at getting leads, and so I was like, if I bring you leads, like show me how to close better, and you can make the money on them, just show me what you're doing. And so then that's what ended up happening. And but then like the first deal, he's like, no, like let's just JV on these deals, like that's cool. And we got like 5 contracts in like a month, and I was like, oh, this is better than my 2 to 3.
Yeah.
And they were deeper because he was better at closing and getting better pricing. And so, so a few months of that, and then we partnered on the wholesale business and ran that for some years on the wholesale fix and flips and, the rentals and Airbnbs, and then off into all the other things.
Yeah. I mean, the one thing that I continuously hear from you throughout this journey is you are always willing to learn and partner with people with experience. You know what I mean? So like,
even if it meant $0 because you were going to learn and establish a relationship. Totally.
Yeah. And I guess the question is, how do you find somebody to do that with in your market? Like, you did it a few times, you know what I mean? Was there any like specific things you were doing to try and hunt those people out, or were they just kind of falling into your lap?
No, I was hunting. I was for sure hunting. Like people will be like, oh, like you're lucky that you like met that Frank guy and then met this other. I was intentionally going out. I was going to meetups. I was going to events. I was listening to podcasts. I was finding anyone that was doing anything locally that was like doing flips and like seeing how I can meet with them. Like, I ended up in Doug Hopkins' office like when I was like 21, and I was like meeting him. Like, how could I do deals? And like, it's like I won't even list the amount of names of people that I met with, like a couple dozen people, like over like my first couple years, just trying to get in the door and like figure out how I could like bring value, and then like have a value exchange. And a lot of them didn't meet with me, wouldn't take the time, didn't respond to my messages, didn't respond to like I'd DM them on Instagram, I'd email them, and like a lot of people didn't. And so it's like whenever people are like, oh, well, you got lucky because connections, I'm like, I made the connections. I made them. I did not get introduced to one of those people. I made those connections by brute force.
Right. And being relentless and being consistent with trying to reach out with them, not just like they didn't respond kind of situation.
Yeah. People get all butthurt. Oh, people don't want to help me. It's like, that's just a victim mentality. Like I have a coach right now for business buying, and this guy, Adam, and he exited, an HVAC company for over $1 billion. And
an HVAC company?
Crazy.
An HVAC company,
wow.
And then he, he's written some books, and, great guy. And like, I was listening to his podcast, and I'm like, man, like I want to get coached by this guy. And so I DM'd him on Instagram, no response.
Yep.
I emailed like his like company website info thing, no response. I messaged him on LinkedIn like 2 times, no response. Commented on something on LinkedIn of his, nothing. Yep. And then I found like, I don't even remember what website, but I was just like searching on podcasts that he was on, and he actually like put his email, like his personal email, and I was like, that's the one.
I gotcha.
And I ended up emailing him, and then I was just like, hey, like, I love all your podcasts. I read all of your books. This one was my favorite. Loved what you did with it, and like this thing that I learned. So it's like, I wasn't just like a freaking knucklehead that like was trying to ask him questions he already answered in his books and already talked about on podcasts. So like, I reached out that way, and he's like, yeah, like I'm I'm doing some coaching, and he's like, I only have a certain amount because like it's just me. I'm just a guy that's written these books, and so that's how I started coaching with him. Was like, just
that's so cool.
What's his name for people that are interested in his books?
Yeah, Adam Coffey.
Like
Coffey.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he has some really good books. One of them's called Empire Builders. Like the first one, he tells everyone to read of his. But yeah, it's like people don't do that. Like they just like they'll
No,
like
they
reach
want
out
the
one
easy
time.
button.
Yeah. And then they get discouraged and then they want to blame. That's like, oh, they're too big and successful to respond to me. It's like, no, maybe your message went to their other inbox on Instagram, or maybe they just missed it in the email because they were out of town that day and it got pushed down and they just missed it. Like,
well, I mean, they also need to remember that like the people that you're DMing are 5, 10, 20 steps up the ladder. And so the amount of demons at that level they're fighting on a day-to-day basis are different from where they're at. So they're juggling and their schedule and all of this stuff. So it's like, it's not even intentional,
No.
It just is what it is.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So it's like, just so it's doing the outreach. Like I'm just doing the same thing I did 10 years ago when I was like, I want to just get better at this real estate thing. So I'm like, I'm going to, get connected with this Frank guy. And like, now I'm like, I'm really trying to do better in this like business acquisition space. Like maybe I should talk to the guy that has $1 billion an exit under him and because he knows.
Right.
So
He probably knows. Yeah.
yeah.
That makes me think of like entitlement. And like, I want to talk a little bit about that and how I feel like it's more prevalent
the generations coming up right now
in today's day and age than I've ever seen before. And then where your entrepreneurial like gumption came from, because you started in this entrepreneurial business owner path at a super young age. And like, where did that come from for you? Because that sense of entitlement is not there at all. And we're similar in age. So it's like, how did it skip us and when the rest of our generation isn't like us? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. No, it's super interesting.
Yeah.
I think on the entitlement thing, I don't know. I give, it's like there's nature and there's nurture. Like some people are more inclined in certain things. And, I give my parents a lot of thanks. They like held me accountable as a kid. Like, when during like spring break, summer breaks, fall breaks, like my dad had a carpet tile and grout cleaning business. And so like I learned how to make money as a kid. How did I make money? Well, you go with your dad when he's cleaning carpets and you go pull the hot hoses in and out of these rooms at these jobs. And, you sweat and like you work for 8 hours and you do that when you're, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15.
Right.
And that's like my dad taught me that's where money comes from. Like money doesn't just fall from the sky. Like you have to like
Hard
go
work.
exchange value and like, he taught me a lot of values, going through that. My dad was always a solopreneur and, so I never wanted to do that. I wanted to build a business where I'd have teams and stuff. But, I learned a lot of values from that. And so like, but I'll tell you this, when I was in junior high and high school, I had plenty of friends that their parents would just give them money for whatever they wanted all the time. And I would get so pissed because I'm like, I have to go freaking work on this Saturday with my dad to make money to go to like the movies with my friends on Saturday. And my friends' parents are just going to give them money to go to the movies on Saturday. So like, that's like, that was like what the reality was in, my household. It wasn't like I was, it was like bad. It was just like, I just learned those things. And like, I hated it during then. Cause you're like 13, you're like, my friends are playing Call of Duty and I don't get to play Call of Duty. And I'm doing this, So I think, I'm grateful to my dad for that a lot. Just like a work ethic and like money doesn't just fall from the sky. And, it's like do good business, do right. Like I still remember one of the times when I was like 13 or 14, like I was like use a wand to like clean the carpet. And like I was using it in this like customer's house and I like accidentally scraped like the side of their like end table. And I was like, oh gosh, and it, like a little scratch was on it and I was like, oh no. And like I was like I went and I remember like going outside and telling my dad, I'm like, Dad, like I scratched their end table. I'm like, what do we do? And he's like, you're gonna tell them what you did. And I was like,
I know. Accountability right there.
Yeah, accountability. So like he made me tell them. Like they were super nice about it. And like I don't know if my dad and I don't know how they worked it out. It wasn't like a big scratch. It was just like a little scratch on the end. But like I knew it happened. So like I had to tell him. And then he like made me tell them. And so it's just like I just got good lessons, I think, in that regard. And playing sports, I think too. Like team sports, I don't there's not I mean, as far as the coaches I had, entitlement wasn't allowed when I was playing sports. Like I played soccer and, team sports. It's like you have to work as a team or you lose. And so it's like everyone is as important as any other position on the field. And so I think there's just some good lessons from that. And then as far as the, desire for entrepreneurship, I just always wanted more things in life, like to live a certain way. And like, I always liked cars. Like my dad's dad, my grandpa, he used to fix up like older cars, like hot rods and stuff. And he would take me to car shows all the time. And I'd see old cars, and then I'd see like exotic cars, like Lamborghinis and Ferraris. And, I remember like asking my parents, like specifically my mom, and I was like, Mom, like, how do people get those? And she's just like, those are for rich people. And I was like, okay, I want to be rich.
I want to be a rich person then.
Yeah. So I was just like, and she's like, do you know how much the gas cost in that, to run a Lamborghini? And I was like, I have no idea, but I want to know.
Yeah.
So I think that was like very innocently, like it sounds kind of like, but like I just very innocently was like, okay, like I want to do whatever that means to,
be able to get that.
Things. Yeah. And so then that led in high school, like I went through Robert Kiyosaki's books. My parents had went to a Zig Ziglar event years ago and had this 32 CD set, like this set that like popped open. And like it was like all of these goal setting and leadership lessons. And like I popped it in our little CD player that I had in my room, and I listened to the entire set over like a weekend. I literally just listened all day, every day for like 2 days, and I was like, holy crap, like you can have what you want, and if you help enough other people get what they want, and like you can set goals and have dreams, and like my alarm clock isn't an alarm clock, I have an opportunity clock, like just all these like new reframes of thinking, and it's like my mind was like getting just rewired through that, and so it just kind of started leading me down that path. So I think that it was like those desires of kind of surface level desire stuff, but it just like was causing me to start dreaming and thinking like, okay, like maybe there is more possible. When originally, when I was in early years of high school, I was like, okay, I thought I was going to be like maybe a physical therapist, because I was like, okay, they make like 75, 80 grand a year at that time. I was like, maybe that's the path. And or maybe, and so I did like sports medicine, and like I was thinking maybe that was it, but then I was going down like this personal development journey, and I was like, there's more. I could become you can have more because you can become more, like just all of these things.
Right.
What's super cool is that, so I know for me, one of the biggest things that I wish is that I learned all of this stuff a lot earlier, right? Like I'm older, and for you feel like you were pretty darn young to already be thinking that way.
Grasp these concepts.
Yeah. I mean,
it's just exposure at a young age.
Yeah. And your dad owned a business too.
Yeah, solo operator. He's, I also had to learn some limiting beliefs out of that too, because he's just like, people suck. There's no good people. You can't hire good people. They're all idiots. Like that was like what he would just ingrain into me. So I'm just like, man, like it's going to be hard.
So much resonates, because I feel like we have that in common, is both of our parents ran their own businesses. And my dad had a small team, but he was still very limited. And so I still consider him a solopreneur. So like he was always working and in there, and like it wouldn't operate without him. Right. And so he was very similar in that aspect. So I identify that commonality between us, that we watched our parents run businesses, and then exposure to things at like a young age. And it just reiterates how much I want to expose our children.
Oh yeah.
To totally. These concepts, even now at 7 and 9,
and
plant these seeds like now.
And it's those little, and at 9, that's old enough. Like that's when my dad had me first start going. I was probably 8 or 9 on the first like jobs, and it wasn't like crazy things he was having me do. It was just like there's 2 hoses. There's like one hose for the water line, then one to like suck the gunk out of like the carpet, and like I would drag those into the house, set up the little things on the walls so you aren't like damaging the customer's walls, and like I was just mainly doing that, and like a runner for my dad. Like he'd be like, go get more towels, or go grab this, go grab this out of the trailer, and like it's like, so those were, that was kind of how it started.
Yeah. So you got into the real estate. You did everything. You're doing everything in real estate, right? You guys are doing rent. You had rentals, wholesale. Fix and flip. You were wholesaling, and you did that for a pretty long time.
And you partnered with like the biggest visionary I've ever met in my life. Like that's just out there, you know, fully taking on the world.
But I know now that you have moved over into buying businesses, right? Mm-hmm. I want you to tell us about that transition and kind of why.
Yeah. I haven't really ever cared about what vehicle I was in. It was just more about like the outcome that the vehicles would create. And I liked real estate. Like, again, like I'm literally JVing on a mobile home.
You're doing it right now.
Really. Yeah.
Like, just like here and there, I'll pop into deals and like, as long as I don't have to like do anything besides just like bring some money and like some knowledge, Right. But I think it was just more like, I really liked business. Like business is my sport. I don't really like watching any sports. I don't really have hobbies in that way. Like, some guys do where they like follow their teams or whatever. I'm just like, I just like business. Business is my hobby. Business is my sport. And so I looked at, the business space and I'm like, okay, like I'm building, a rental portfolio and like we have, I built, some cash flow and some net worth in these properties and, which is cool. But whenever we were, because we started other businesses outside of real estate and I was just like having fun doing those. I was like enjoying that more than just the, the wholesaling business. And so, it really just started transitioning where I'm like, okay, well, I just started, reading more books and I'm like, okay, well, you can get rich in real estate and you could build, grid net worth and cash flow in real estate. But I'm like, man, like you can get like wealthy in like private equity and like, like guys, like think about this, right? So this cleaning, I will give you just an idea of an example on this. So I bought into this cleaning company last summer. They were struggling with their margin, right? They were doing about $2 million a year. They were like 3-4% net profit. But like I could look at their P&L and understand what was going wrong. Like I could read it and it was telling me a story. And I'm like, okay, if I could help fix that story and, then we can turn this thing around. And, I'm not telling people that are listening to go buy broken companies. Please do not do that. Like I wasn't buying this to live off the cash flow of this business. So like, let me preface as I'm going into the store and someone gets excited. But I'm like, okay, it's like 3 to 5% net profit. And so we get into this deal and within 8.5, 9 months, now it went from literally barely making any money to now it's trending. This year it'll do probably $3.5 million to maybe $4 million if we keep ramping up the way that it's going. And it's on, we're almost at a run rate of $80,000 a month in net. Last month it was about 60. So it's like within under a year. And what that does, like, so like enterprise value, like when that business is doing $1 million a year in, in profit or, $1 million a year in EBITDA, like that's a business that, the valuation for like the cleaning business, anywhere from like a 3.5 to 4 times multiple. So like a business that was, bought into it for only a couple $100,000 last year for a third of the company. Now it's, 3.5 to 4 times the valuation of $1 million. So it's worth, call it $3.5 million to $4 million by the end of this year, just with it just staying kind of on the rate it's on. And I'm like, okay, 3.5 to 4 million for something that I put $200,000 into.
It's crazy.
It's like, wild.
And like, and obviously I only have a third of that. So like, let's just be clear. I don't own 100% of it, but it's like, I can't do that with like a real estate deal. And it's like, you could only force appreciation so much.
So much.
Right.
Like, so it's, so that was kind of the interesting thing was I'm like, okay, I could get into these deals and I can like add value through, strategic changes and pivots to the business. We can go buy other ones, bring it up under it, get, the arbitrage of, multiple companies together going and the profits that they can generate. So that was kind of the thing that was interesting. And, there's also a part of me that is a Dave Ramsey fan and like, which is, it's like, where am I going with that? But, it's like, I like to like in my personal life, like I like having things paid off. And so like, I look at, it's like, I get into a deal and it's like, okay, like this deal, when we sell it, that's what we'll use to buy, we hope to buy our Hawaii home.
Yes.
After we sell it in a couple of years.
That's cool.
Yeah. No, I remember you saying that, which is like the opposite of what you kind of see on social media is like, leverage debt.
Leverage
and all this
everything.
stuff.
You should just be leveraged to your eyeballs on everything always. And finance your car because you can get a 2% increased amount by, having that money out somewhere else. And like, I think there's like a good like middle. It's like not being so, crazy leverage, not being so much on the Dave Ramsey side.
Totally.
I think there's like finding a healthy
medium.
Yeah.
I agree. But it was refreshing to hear that perspective from you because no one's saying that.
Yeah.
It was either like Dave Ramsey or leverage your life.
Just go all in, 100% finance everything.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's not that cheap anymore, but when it was, everyone's like, money's cheap right now. Just, so what kind of businesses have you bought or started at this point? Because I feel like the last time I reached out to you, you guys had bought the plant business.
Plant guy,
Did you see it? Have you been watching Rock the Block, Cody?
Of course not.
I saw your story, the moth wall on the staircase.
Yes,
I saw it.
That was it.
That was you guys.
So classic.
Thank you, by the way. That was
awesome.
But like, what kind of businesses have you started or bought? And then what is really your focus?
Yeah.
Now?
So now, like we learn in everything, right? Like having like a more detailed strategy. So like the plant guy was just like, it just was a deal we got into and like, there wasn't like a specific strategy of why. And, I started working with that now coach Adam over this last year. And now I'm hyper focused on the businesses that I'm wanting to invest into. I'm only buying in Arizona. I have this home service, the residential cleaning company. I'm going to, dinner on Monday with a guy that owns a pest control company. I'm trying to, shake hands and shake the trees and like find deals. And, my plan right now is just to acquire home service businesses that then have synergy with each other. Cause like we're cleaning 1,200 houses a month with the cleaning business. So,
Crazy.
I can then have the pest control company's customers cross marketed. And so that's the strategy now is getting, home service companies with recurring income, contract revenue, not project based, because just stacking the odds in my favor of recurring income revenue sources. And so that's the focus from the business buying side. And then, Scale with Pros is really, more consulting and, coming in and helping companies scale and, fix operations and things like that.
Yeah. When did you start Scale with Pros?
It was like end of last summer.
Okay. And
Yeah.
I know that was always something you were super passionate about, was like creating systems, building teams to do essentially what you're doing now with acquiring businesses, is making them run efficiently so they're all profitable.
Yeah. So that's like kind of like I look at it as like the foundation now, where it's like the consulting company is there to work on different businesses, work with clients, and also the team that whenever I'm investing into a business, then it's that team that could work on the business. And we can, have that same team work on the deals that I'm investing in. And so, and what we'll do is like, we buy in and then we charge like a retainer back, like a management fee back to our consulting company for, the salaries of the team members that, are helping work on those businesses. And so that's what the focus is now. And so like the plant guy business, would I buy that today? Absolutely not. But I didn't know, like, it's just like you learn, right? Like what deals make sense. It's like when you're first flipping, like you buy stuff and you're like, and then you start doing more deals and you're like, I would have never bought that deal 5 deals ago because I know what I know now. So it's like, that's part of the learning experience.
Always learning.
I mean, and it goes the other way. There are a bunch where you're like, I would have bought that one, but I didn't buy it back then, So, I mean, there's a lot of people, there's so much information out there now, right? And you hear a lot of people talking about buying businesses. And I guess my question would be, if somebody was out there and they're looking to start a business or buy a business, what would you recommend someone do first? Is it smarter to start your own business, or would you think it's better if you could find a business to buy?
I think if someone has like zero professional skills, they should not be buying a business because like they're probably going to run it into the ground. Like, you know, like
That
let's
makes
just be
sense.
real.
Yeah.
Like, let's just be real. It's like they're going to probably mismanage the crap out of it and jack it up.
Right.
And so, you know, sorry to those that are like excited about maybe doing that. Maybe it's better to work in a business that you would want to eventually buy, so then you could learn the business and then buy it, because now you at least know how the business should operate successfully. So that's what I would rather tell someone to do if they don't have the skills yet, because it's you know, you can screw up businesses for sure, and it's like you gotta be making the right choices. And so for me now, like I don't like even starting like the consulting business, like I was like, I don't want to do this. But the only reason I did it was because it's like just going to be like the foundation for working with the businesses that I partner with. So it's just like, it just like made sense. Right. But I didn't want to start up a new business. Like I don't ever want to really start anything new again. It's just so hard. It's just not fun. I hate the product market fit stage of business. Like it's not fun for me. And so I would much rather buy into stuff that's already, you know, doing, you know, 750 grand, $1 million, $2 million a year, maybe $3 million a year, and work it up from there than, you know, something from the ground up.
Yeah. You know? I mean, that's so interesting. Two questions. When does business become fun? You know, like when does the grind years stop? And then what do you think is the biggest component to the grind years stopping where you're trying to become established to this, you actually get to enjoy some of the fruits of your labor in business?
So I think everyone would have a little bit different opinion, but I just look at it from like a revenue standpoint of like what then becomes possible with the business. So I think the like 0 to $1 million, it's like everything's about marketing and selling. You need to get enough leads in the door. You need to sell enough of them to like get revenue. And it's a grind at that stage because you usually don't have a big team. You don't have, you know, you're doing a lot of the things. You're wearing multiple hats. 1 to 3 million a year is, you know, I think also it's like kind of like no man's land. I don't love the 1 to 3 million because here's the thing about 1 to 3 million is you have a successful like product market fit. Your business is doing well, but you're working either you have two choices you make. You choose to work more, like just more hours to keep scaling it up from there, or you choose to take a big chunk of your profit and hire more team members to be able to take more off of your plate. But then you take a step back in lifestyle at that 1 to 3 million mark if you do that. So it's like choose to work more or choose to take less home at 1 to 3. And so I think a lot of businesses get stuck there because they're just kind of like, you know, you kind of flounder in that. I think at like 5 million plus is when a business gets like really nice, in my opinion, because you usually at that point have like some like mid-level like managers that are like managing departments, and they're able to take on a lot of it. And then you could, you know, afford to pay them a good enough salary to get, you know, B plus A players to do it. And now you actually have more freedom. So I've seen that take place a few times within businesses that I've been a part of. And like, that's just a trend that I kind of noticed was like right around that, you know, 5 million plus, you can like actually pay the talent that you wanted when you're at the 1 to 3, but you couldn't afford, and you still get to make good money. So I think it's, you know, and so those that are listening that are like going on their path to $1 million are like freaking probably like, are you kidding me? It's going to get worse.
Wait, what?
It gets worse.
1 to 3 million. I thought that was that was it. That's going to be the hard time.
No, but that makes so much sense, right? Because 1 to 3, you start really feeling your hard work because you're making decent money. So you have some lifestyle changes, but then it's like you can hit this ceiling that you desperately want to break through, but you're not really necessarily willing to give up your lifestyle change, so you just hit this ceiling. So do you think that that's the big, or what is the biggest mistake business owners make when they are trying to scale their business?
I guess at what revenue range? Because I think all revenue ranges have a different like thing.
That's for sure.
A different demon.
I think our audience is below 3 at this point.
Yeah. So like 1 to 3.
Yeah. So 0 to $1 million. Marketing, sales. You need more qualified leads. You need to sell more of them to your stuff. Like that's, and just do that. Like that's like the biggest thing that's going to make
Just
the biggest
marketing.
difference.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just get enough qualified opportunities in the door, get good at, closing enough of them, and you're at $1 million. And only 7% of businesses in America are actually, above $1 million, which is crazy, right?
Which is
that is
4 million
crazy.
small businesses in America, 7% over $1 million.
Wow.
Crazy, man. Crazy.
Yeah. And so, for those that are listening that have achieved over $1 million, congratulations. You're in
Good
the
job.
7%.
Yeah, that's cool.
So it's a win. And and then like $1 million to $3 million, I think what starts to happen is like there has to be a shift of like professionalization of the business. It's no longer like just running as mom pop style if you want it to continue to grow. There are businesses that do run it that way at that revenue range, but they're gonna stay stuck there if they don't change the way that they're running it.
Yeah.
There's a few things that we notice in just working with like clients, like we just see some of these things over and over again now, is at 1 to 3, oftentimes these business owners, they're hiring people when they were a lot smaller and giving them these titles that are the wrong titles. Like they hire their cousin that learned QuickBooks on YouTube and they call him their CFO.
I heard you say this before. I was cracking up.
Yeah. So they like give all these titles out, and then they get to this 1 to 3 million, and their bookkeeper is called their CFO, and then now they're out of their depths because they don't know how to do financial forecasting. They don't know how to do any of the skills that would be required now at that bigger stage. And so it's like that holds them back. So like your team starts to hold you back if they're not growing. And, people are mistitled, and then also more team members start to get in the mix, and people don't have clear rules and lines of engagement of who does what in the business. So you have people like stepping all over each other.
Yeah.
Like I was literally, we have a client, he has a commercial, he's in Texas, and he has a commercial appliance company where they go in and service commercial appliances for like restaurants and hotel restaurants and stuff like that. And I was on a call with him this morning, and he's just like, oh my gosh, he's like, it blew my mind when we actually built out the team's accountability chart. And he's like, we had 4 people that were all touching customer service, and and I've been wondering for like a year why our customer service was so bad. And he's like, and now I know. Sometimes someone would answer, sometimes no one would answer. Sometimes they would confirm the appointment, sometimes no one was. So he's like, we had no consistent communication, but everyone was kind of owning it, so that meant no one was owning it, So it's like there's these crosses and teams that start to get jacked up in that range because more people are involved to do different things in the business. So kind of narrowing it down, it's getting clear on who owns what in the business, and 1 to 3 is super important. Having the right people to do the roles in the business becomes more important because you need more talent and more skills. You can't just have generalized roles. Like you need to start specializing the roles. Like you can't have a catch-all person. You need someone that can run finance, can run marketing, or whatever the function of that business is. And the final thing is then, companies at that revenue range, I think they miss the mark where you have to start establishing the companies like the mission, the vision, the core values, because you start having a lot of people.
Yeah.
And you can't impact all of those people anymore as the owner, where you're not pouring into every single person every day. Because you could have 20 team members, 30 team members or more at that revenue range, depending on the type of business. Some home service companies have that. And if you don't have rules of these are our core values, this is our mission, this is our vision, you start hiring and then your message gets diluted, and then you get people that are not good team players. They don't interact right, and so then you get churn, you get turnover, you get negative customer reviews, and you're pulling your hair out, and you're like, why isn't Bob that Susie hired freaking following my values? And it's like, well, you never actually established them, and then you never taught anyone and actually how to hold them accountable to those values. So it's like all of these things start to get people stuck in that 1 to 3, I think.
100%. 100%. And you sound like you're speaking from experience here.
Yeah, it's pain and suffering.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that leads me to what's the biggest challenge you've had to overcome in your entrepreneurial journey so far?
That's such a big one.
I know. There's probably been a ton, but anyone that stands out more than the others?
Yeah, there's so many challenges. I I think it's just consistently just continuing to like level myself up. You know, we're our own bottleneck. We're, you know, your leadership lid is the lid that either helps you rise higher or keeps you stuck. So just me being better so that I could better lead people, I think is just the constant challenge. And, you know, it's like you have to continuously like get yourself like calloused to dealing with like bigger problems as businesses get bigger. And, you know, I've had some like really big losses through the years. And, you know, I would say one of the most significant ones was like when I was 21 and that network marketing company went under. Yeah. And I was used to making money with it. And like from like 18 to 21, you know, at that time it was good money. It's like inflation makes it even worse now. But like I was making like, you know, 8 to 12 grand a month when I was like 18, 19, 20,
which is
21.
crazy.
I was like, I'm balling out.
You're balling.
Good.
Yeah. I was like, I'm good for life. And, you know, and then when that company went under, I learned like money management's important. And like I had like blown everything. Like I spent everything. I had no money management strategy. I didn't know anything about it. And I was like, okay, you can't just make money. You have to like learn how to manage it and stuff, you know? And
that's so huge for anyone, business owners or not, but specifically business owners. I feel like you're so focused on growing the business and making the money that when you have it, you don't spend it wisely or you don't allocate it appropriately. And that's a huge part of being in a successful business long term is that money management side.
Yep. 100%. So that's what I would say is one of the biggest things, because it was just so painful. It was just so painful to like have like thought I was successful during that time and then have nothing to show for it at the end of that time. And then like feel like I was just restarting when I was 21 and I was just like but it was a good lesson because it created like an ego death for me, because I had an ego for sure, as you know, probably most 18-year-olds would, you know, if you're making good money. And so it was good because it like humbled me and it like made me forever going forward. I was like, I am never too good to have bad things happen to me. Bad things happen to good people all the time. And, you know, I have to be a good steward. I need to steward money better. And so like I went down a path of financial management too. So,
is there a financial management strategy or trick or tip you could tell somebody that's looking for that?
So 2 books. Book 1, T. Harv Eker, Secrets of the Millionaire Mind.
Love that.
Probably read that book freaking, I don't know, 50 times in my life.
That's like a once a year read for sure.
Yeah, it's so good. And so that was how I modeled my personal money management philosophy and have been modeling that. You know, I've adjusted the percentage recommendations based off of income going up or coming down. I'll adjust, but I've followed that for almost 11 years now. So that's something I've just stuck to. So that's for personal money management. For business, I think Profit First, or a variation of Profit First from Mike Michalowic's book, is the other one. So it's like, those are the only 2 books you need. You don't need to read any other finance management books.
It's so
T. Harv
true.
Eker for personal money management, Profit First for business. You're good.
Yeah,
I love that.
Profit First, when we started implementing that in our business, changed everything.
I mean, you might have been the person that turned us on to that book. Like I think it was after we were
we joined Pace.
Yeah, and I think I probably heard you talking about it. So
that changed.
Shouted from the rooftops about it a lot for years.
Yes.
So do I when anybody asks, because it's so true. You just are so focused on growing the business and making the money that once you have it, why do you work so hard if you're not a wise steward of that money? So when you need that money, it's actually there. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So this is one thing that I always notice about you, and please tell me if this is actually true, because I don't talk to you a ton, but I see you on social media, and it always seems like you have a very good balance between your personal lifestyle, work and business. So like you do a lot of like traveling, and it seems like you're a very, very relaxed person. Is it true? Do you have
He's
like
a
really
Taurus.
good balance?
I don't know. He's a Taurus.
No, wait, Cody always, I know, but he always seems like the cool and collective, like has it together. he's like, I don't know. You pick up on that too, right?
Yeah, of course.
So is that like really
He's
it? Are you very balanced or yeah? How
and
do you
if
do
the
it?
balance is legit.
Yeah, the balance is legit. I mean, that's definitely legit. I just call it life. Like I just am doing life stuff. But I'm glad that I come off cool and collected, and like internally, like I'm losing it sometimes. Like I have hard. Like, it's like, this stuff's hard. Like I have things just go totally sideways. Like we've had, just in the last couple of years, like I've had like lines of business in certain businesses die. And it's just like, it's so painful and like, it's hard. And like, so it's like, still go through the same stuff that everyone else goes through and, dealing with some stuff. And one of the businesses that, some personnel issues with, a couple team members that was like waking me up last night and I was thinking about it. And it's just like, it's just like, that's like, that doesn't go away. Like you have that stuff that happens. But, it was always a priority to me again, like back to, why I didn't want to be an agent, time freedom, location freedom, financial freedom, so it's like, I've always wanted to keep that important. And, I work a ton, so it's like I do work a lot. Like I'm doing a lot, but I also, make sure that we're doing trips. Like we're going on vacation. We're going to our favorite places. We're like having fun and doing that stuff. Because at the end of the day, it's like, what's the point of all the work if you're, and everyone has like different things too. Like some people, like they don't care to ever travel, but like they may love sports. So it's like, they're going to go to every spring traiing game, and that's their thing. Or, maybe they love cars and they want to like get a car that they want to work on. Like, I don't like any of that stuff. I don't like sports. So I'm like, for us, it's business is the hobby. And then like, we like to travel and like, we like to, me and Hayel like to surf. So like, we like to go to Costa Rica. We like the beaches, so going out to Hawaii, the different islands, and so it's like we just that's the things that's just what we like to do is to go and travel and do that type of stuff. But it's I am grateful that I come across as calm and collected, because I sometimes do not feel that like internally where I'm like I feel like there's chaos going on and dealing with problems and it's hard. It is hard. Sure. Yeah. So, but I think, if you're only working and you're not doing anything fun, it's like, what's the point?
Yeah.
I agree. I recommend everybody go find that thing that makes them happy. And I think we're pretty similar to you in the travel and just making memories with the people that we love, because it almost makes you work harder after you come back from something that you truly enjoy doing, that vacation, that trip of a lifetime or whatever, because you're like, you're reset, you're recharged, you're rebalanced, you're ready to continue to work hard. It's not just all over here and nothing over here, you know? What is it all worth if you're just in one part of your life?
I know, but it's easy to get caught up. It's easy to get caught up there, and a lot of people do get caught up there.
That's how burnout happens though. But I also would attest that you come across cool, calm, collected, all of that, because you've done the inner work too. You've done personal development. You constantly are doing that. You're constantly trying to level up yourself, which you touched on before. And I think that's a huge part of entrepreneurship and business ownership that people don't talk about. It's all grind and all hustle and all action, and not the other part of like the holistic approach to self-care and the inner journey that's going to keep you in the game long term, Yeah,
100%. And I think like on the travel and stuff, like we just like book stuff out like months in advance, because I'm not like a spontaneous person. Like I can't just like, oh, we're just going to leave tomorrow on vacation. I'm a planner. I'm a planner, so I can't do that. But, it's like, if it's out far enough, I'm like, okay, like that's later this year, it's a few months out. And then like when they come up, I'm like, oh no, it's coming up. But then once we're there, it's like, all right, this is fun. Like this is good. I'm glad we're here, but, so that's just something that's been helpful for me, is just like putting it out there on the calendar, and just booking stuff, and then everything's going to work
is
out.
what it
It'll be
is.
fine.
Yeah, that's what you got to do. You just got to book it out on the calendar.
Yeah.
We're super excited because we're going to Australia next year. I know it's
Yes,
like a
we
far
are.
out trip, but like that is in the calendar already.
Where?
We're going to stay in Sydney, right in Darling Harbour. It's like the super touristy spot. And then we're going to Hamilton Island. So Hamilton Island has, it's like an hour outside of Sydney. So it's a little island. And
Everyone
drives around golf carts. There's only one hotel on the island, but there's canoe races there.
Yeah.
So they do like a whole weekend of canoe races, 6-man canoe races, and my dad paddles. So we're just going to take the family up there and go do that. It's super cool.
Excited for that.
That's really cool. You guys need to go to the zoo when you're there, the Sydney Zoo.
That's what everyone said. Yeah.
So we're going to spend some time for sure.
Yeah, we'll spend like a week and a half in Sydney, and then we'll head up to Hamilton Island.
And at Hamilton and then go home. But I digress from travel because I could talk about this for a while. But I think to end things, because we've kept you long enough, is 2 last questions. Is where are you in 5 years, Cody? Like, what does the future look like? And then what do you hope to leave with the audience?
Yeah. So, 5 years, I mean, my current plan as far as business goes is, continuing growing the consulting company and serving companies in the 500K to 5 million a year range and helping them fix their ops so they can, have a self-managing business. So that's, the foundation. But the plan is to have 4 different home service companies that I'm doing roll-ups with that, every few years I'm selling one, taking a big chunk of money. And, one will be buying, a home in Hawaii, one of the islands to be determined.
I got to figure it out.
That's in the plans. And, as selling those, being able to direct some of the money to do the nonprofit work to help with rescue dogs here in Arizona as we're selling companies and using that capital, and then to basically end up having like my own little family office where I have a team and we invest in companies, we help them grow, and we just use our own capital, and we're just kind of doing that. And that's like what I plan to do. And then personal side, we continue traveling. We live half the year in Hawaii. We're thinking it's either going to be like we're thinking maybe Maui, like I don't know,
probably, yeah,
Maui. We're biased to Oahu, but
I know.
Yeah, but Maui's beautiful. We love Maui,
of course.
Yeah. So live there half the year, the other half the year in Arizona, and by then we'll have kids. That'll be on the personal side, and and then keep doing the things that we love to do.
Yeah. Love that.
Yeah,
That's
do love
exciting.
that.
We gotta talk offline more about like the buying businesses side and what that looks like. And is it you only buy one business at a time and only focus on one business? Because we've been told many different things, and we're definitely not just focusing on one business.
There's many strategies. So it depends. The answer is it depends.
It depends.
Yeah. We hear a lot of good things about home service companies, pest control, those companies that have contracts and reoccurring revenue.
Yeah.
We had probably the guy that owns the biggest pest control company here on Oahu on our podcast, and he was like kind of breaking it down, and I was like, bro. And they bought out like their competition when they were coming up, and like absorbed them and moved to the other islands. And how he was breaking it down was like, makes very good. Yeah. You're making some money, bro.
Yeah. Congratulations. Can I shake your hand, sir? Yeah.
But
so good.
Yeah.
And then what do you hope somebody took away from today? What's the one thing you hope you could leave with the audience?
That it's okay that, as you're building a business, it's going to be hard, but that's why you just keep the end in mind. It's not as much about the vehicle that you're in, but that, that you can actually get to the outcome that you're looking for. the businesses change, markets change. So like, it's okay to pivot as you're going along the journey towards the ultimate end outcome. And, be careful listening to influencers out there, everyone. Most of them just have things to peddle to you and don't actually know how to actually build real businesses. So, if you find the guys with the smaller amounts of followers, but with real businesses, those are the ones you want to connect with. They're just harder to find because they're not influencers.
Yeah.
I love that.
That is an excellent way to end the podcast. But
exactly.
I'm super grateful for you jumping on and us getting to talk this story with you. We have to, either we're coming up to Arizona or you're coming down to Hawaii and we'll get together. But yeah, dude, if you ever need anything ever, please don't hesitate to reach out.
Yeah.
We are your Hawaiian brothers and sisters.
Listen, we can find you a house on Maui if that's the island that you choose.
You know what's hilarious? I was just looking at a deal in Maui yesterday, but I don't think it would be in a location you would want. But it's a value add, like a good deal.
We were thinking there's like, it's either maybe Kihei.
Kihei.
Paella, I've heard. Maybe Haiku. It's like a little bit more rural up the top north end of the island.
Yeah. Nice and cool up there.
Yeah. So, but sell the company, use the cash to buy, buy a cash vacation home. So
love that.
Yeah. All right.
Right on, buddy. Well, thank you so much.
Where can people find you?
People could find me in probably the show notes, but Cody Barton Official on Instagram, or you can check out what we're doing with the consulting company, see how I could help your business at skillwithpros.com. And so those are the places I'm most just active on Instagram. So
cool.
Guys, hit up Cody and peace out.
Peace.